These 10 The Twilight Zone episodes have absolutely perfect endings. The first run of Rod Serling's The Twilight Zone is far and away the best version of the series, with episodes so memorable that you may not have even seen them, but would recognize them instantly from how often they've been paid homage. The Twilight Zone is known, among other reasons, for its shocking, twisty endings, which often serve to frame the episode in a new light or reveal a clever truth about something. Sometimes these endings and twists are ridiculous, but other times, Rod Serling nails the perfect final 5 minutes to satisfyingly close out an episode. The Prime Mover, 1961. Season 2, Episode 21. Ace, Dane Clark, Kitty, Christine White, and Jimbo, Buddy Ebsen, playing roulette in the Prime Mover in the Twilight Zone. In The Prime Mover, a gambler, Ace Larson, Dane Clark, discovers his friend, Jimbo Cobb, Buddy Ebsen, has telekinetic powers. Ace decides the best use of those powers is at the Las Vegas casinos. He quickly grows rich, but also insatiably greedy. His final bet of the weekend, however, ends badly, and he loses it all. It turns out Jimbo's powers left him at that crucial moment and Ace is back to being broke. It's a big enough loss that Ace realizes what kind of man he was becoming, and decides to be more honest. Jimbo secretly uses his telekinetic powers to continue his janitorial work, pleased to know he helped his friend overcome his vices. A Nice Place to Visit, 1960. Season 1, Episode 28. Rocky, Larry Blyden, playing poker with 3 girls watching in A Nice Place to Visit in the Twilight Zone. There are plenty of episodes of the Twilight Zone that trap their protagonists in unending hells, but A Nice Place to Visit does it more literally than most. Rocky Valentine, Larry Blyden, is a thief who is shot and ends up in heaven, where every one of his desires is met with the snap of his fingers. Soon, Rocky becomes bored with having everything handed to him, and asks to leave heaven, at which point he is informed he's been in the other place all along. There's a slow creeping horror in A Nice Place to Visit, and you can see how oppressive a world where you could have anything for eternity would be. The Invaders, 1961. Season 2, Episode 15. The Invaders approach the woman, Agnes Moorehead, in Twilight Zone. The Invaders is almost a one-woman show, with Agnes Moorehead as the unnamed, one-woman. Living in a remote cabin with no modern conveniences, the woman is surprised when 2 tiny robots land a flying saucer on her roof. The 2 robots attack her with alien weapons, and she desperately manages to defeat them. Before the last robot is defeated, however, it sends a message back to its homeworld, in perfect English. The invaders were astronauts from Earth who landed on a planet inhabited by humanoid giants. It's a reveal that turns everything on its head and is a perfect example of how one line can make an entire episode of The Twilight Zone. A Passage for Trumpet, 1960. Season 1, Episode 32. The Twilight Zone, A Passage for Trumpet, Joey Crown, Jack Klugman, holding his trumpet and talking to Nan, Mary Webster. In A Passage for Trumpet, Jack Klugman plays Joey Crown, a jobless trumpet player in New York City has nothing to live for when he impulsively steps in front of a speeding truck. When he rouses, he finds himself in limbo, where he can see people, but they can't see him. He meets a mysterious stranger named Gabe John Anderson, who encourages him to return to life. Jack decides to give life another try, and the end of the episode is filled with small, but important wins, such as earning a few bucks and attracting the attention of a kind neighbor. It's the little things that keep us going. The Masks, 1964. Season 5, Episode 26. A family holding masks in the Twilight Zone. The Masks is an unnerving episode of The Twilight Zone that's also highly satisfying. Jason Foster, Robert Keith, is an elderly, dying New Orleans man whose spineless daughter and her unpleasant family come to visit him in hopes of claiming his fortune upon his death. He agrees to will them his money, but outlines one term. Emily, Virginia Gregg, her greedy husband, and her sadistic and vain children have to wear Mardi Gras masks that depict their true inner selves. As the night goes on, Jason berates his family for their failings, then passes away. His family's celebration turns to horror when they realize their faces have twisted to conform to their masks. 2, 1961. Season 3, Episode 1. A man, Charles Bronson, and the woman, Elizabeth Montgomery, looking at each other in the Twilight Zone. 2 is set in a not-so-distant future where a man and a woman are the last 2 inhabitants of a battered city, perhaps the last 2 inhabitants in the world. The problem is that they're soldiers on opposite sides of a war that clearly led to the destruction around them. Despite their natural opposition, there's some chemistry there. This episode of The Twilight Zone is a bit reversed from what we know. Instead of 2 typical, modern people thrust into an inexplicable situation, this episode is about 2 people used to a strange existence, thrust into a romantic comedy. It's charming and winking, and the ending is as uplifting as you can get in an apocalyptic landscape. The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, 1960. Season 1, Episode 22. The townsfolk standing around in the dark in The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, The Twilight Zone. The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street is often ranked among the best episodes of The Twilight Zone ever. The episode begins in the quaint, all-American neighborhood on Maple Street. After a strange object passes in the sky overhead, the power in the neighborhood begins turning off and on. Paranoia sets in as the once friendly residents of Maple Street violently turn on one another. The end of the episode zooms out to show there were alien invaders, but they only needed to cut the power to start a frenzy. They intend to use the same strategy on the rest of Earth, and it's obvious they'll be successful. Miniature, 1963. Season 4, Episode 8. Charlie, Robert Duvall, standing next to a dollhouse in the Twilight Zone miniature. Robert Duvall stars in Miniature as Charlie Parks, a lonely man who passes away his time at the local museum. One day, he notices something odd: the dolls in one of the decorative dollhouses become animated when he looks inside. Tragically, the woman inside seems to be a victim of abuse by the male doll. Charlie gradually falls in love with the doll, but is put in a psychiatric hospital after he's discovered trying to rescue the female doll. He eventually escapes, and later, the night watchman peers into the dollhouse to find Charlie embracing the female doll. It's a strange ending, made sweeter by the guard's kind smile, suggesting he'll keep this secret. The Night of the Meek, 1960. Season 2, Episode 11. Art Carney as Henry Corwin with the elf by the sleigh in the Twilight Zone. The Night of the Meek. Christmas is not a common theme in the Twilight Zone. The ideas that go along with the holiday, joy, family, love, and selflessness don't exactly square with Serling's cockeyed view of humanity in the show. However, he all but makes up for the lack of Yuletide with The Night of the Meek.